Hello! Welcome to the very first episode of Aligned in Chaos. My name is Hunter, and I can't wait to share all of my random thoughts with you. Thank you for joining me, wherever you are in the world, whatever time it may be. Get comfy, get cozy, and please enjoy my ramblings, because I love to ramble. This has been a long time coming. This journey began as a blog, which I've loved writing and expressing my thoughts through over the past few years. But I decided to turn those blog posts into a podcast since I know that not everyone has the same learning styles and they also don't love reading as much as I do. So some people enjoy listening a lot better. For anyone who's never read my blog, the whole premise, the purpose behind what I do is to supply people with a safe space to heal by providing valuable life advice that I learned throughout my life. And though I'm young, I promise you I have learned a lot in my 20-some years of life. I wanted a way to bring my passion for writing to life and be able to tie in mental health, which for anyone who knows me knows that mental health is a topic that I advocate for so heavily. Though, side note, little disclaimer, I'm not a licensed professional, maybe one day, but please take everything I say with a grain of salt. Did, however, graduate my undergraduate schooling with a degree in the field of psychology, so I have learned a thing or two throughout the years, but I'm just not a professional. When it came to the creation of this project, not just this podcast, but the idea as a whole, like this whole dream that I had to help people, when it was merely a flicker of inspiration, I really had to sit down and refine what my exact goal was because I just had way too many directions that I wanted to go in. I'm someone who overthinks and I always have a million and one ideas like running through my mind and a dozen hobbies and interests, and I have a hard time fixating on one singular idea. And so to sit down and figure out a single path to take this project on was quite difficult for me, but it was a good challenge. To help me figure out the right path for this podcast, this project, I knew two things going into it. One, as I said before, I love helping people and I wanted to be able to reach a wide audience in order to do that and be able to provide people with answers that I wish I would have known sooner. So no matter who you are, no matter how old you are, whoever's listening, I hope that through this I can help give you answers that maybe you have questions on in life and just have never gotten answers, or help you come to realizations that you don't always come to until you kind of have it set in front of you. I know that I want to be able to help people through the highs and lows of their life. Like that's the ultimate goal. And secondly, I want to inspire people by incorporating my love for art and life and adventure and really be able to show you all of the good things that life has to offer. No matter how chaotic or how negative it gets, there's always something beautiful to find. But I also want to be transparent about it, that it's not always perfect and positive, but it can always be beautiful. And that at the end of the day, it's always worth it too. Once I knew this, then came the hardest part about this whole project. The name. I am absolutely terrible at naming things. I'm also sometimes terrible with decisions, so maybe that's where that comes from. But I actually had several name ideas before I came up with Aligned in Chaos. I don't even know where that came from, but it just clicked when I thought of it. Something about it felt right compared to some of the other ideas that I had come up with. I don't remember all of them, but the one that I do remember was That's the T, because I thought it was funny. I went with it for a little while, but it just never fully fit, so I'm kind of glad that I changed it because Aligned in Chaos was just a lot more fitting to the goal that I had in mind for this project. So what exactly does Aligned in Chaos mean? You may be wondering. I wondered it myself because there's no real definition as I kind of made it up, but to me, it's the philosophy of finding peace in the most chaotic moments of your life, being so balanced and aligned within yourself that you are an unwavering force to be reckoned with in the face of hardships. It's a way to teach yourself to have clarity in moments of chaos so that the chaos is easier to get through. So let's break this down even further and start with the chaos part of it. I think that there are so many different forms of chaos, from starting a new job to losing a loved one through death to fighting with a friend or planning a trip or moving across the country, anything. Maybe even out of the country, and leaving everything you know behind. Not all chaos is inherently negative, but all chaos does have overarching feelings of stress and overstimulation. Some chaos we barely even notice because it's so part of our everyday routines, like a loud roommate, traffic outside your window, a loud coworker who talks on the phone all day. These are things that we can get used to. They're not ideal, but they do become so part of our routine that it's expected and at times comfortable because it just becomes so normal for us. Chaos exists on various levels of extreme, and it all comes down to how much we recognize it and how we choose to handle it. Because chaos simply is disruptive, and as humans, we love our routines, and disruption makes us uncomfortable. When we sit down and digest the chaos in our lives, allow ourselves to fully process it, it becomes easier to swallow. You can break it off like little bits at a time to make it more digestible rather than trying to process it all at once, which can really be overwhelming. And I think that's why some people have a hard time with healing, because they try to look at the whole picture, the whole problem, and it's really overwhelming to try and process all of those emotions at once or all of those memories, rather than just trying to take it one step at a time. But then also sometimes taking it one step at a time is overwhelming because it's hard to know where to start. And I'm hoping with this podcast, I can try and help you through how to figure out where to start, how to break it down easier. Because ignoring the chaos doesn't make it go away. It just forces you to stuff it down until all that's left is unprocessed negative energy to sift through. And that is unhealthy. It's where a lot of unhealthy habits, unhealthy mindsets stem from. And those are not beneficial to your life. So how do we address this chaos? How do we become brave enough to face it, process it in a healthy way, work through it if we can? Well, first, you have to give yourself the space, the patience and care to do so. You have to take the conscious effort, make that conscious decision to decide to do so. That's one of the first steps. Sitting with yourself and thinking through these situations or feelings, giving yourself a moment of peace and quiet to allow yourself to fully understand and feel what you're truly feeling. It actually has a definition. It's called meditation or mindfulness. These are two terms you have probably heard of at least once in passing if you're not more familiar with it. But these two concepts, in my opinion, are so crucial to becoming aligned in chaos. I'm going to say these two words a lot over the next few minutes, so please bear with me, but I promise it will help further explain them. So what exactly is the difference between mindfulness and meditation? Mindfulness and meditation kind of go hand in hand due to their similarities, but they are technically different. My unprofessional take on them, simply put, is that mindfulness is a state of being, whereas meditation is a more active practice. Both require practice and work, but mindfulness is much more easily implemented into our everyday lives, whereas meditation requires more time to sit down and actively find quiet in your day in order to quiet your mind. Mindfulness is as easy as thinking of a new recipe while you're doing dishes, where meditation almost requires you to schedule out time in your day to find time to actually practice it. It's a lot more active effort and individualized attention, and we don't always feel like we have that time. On an expert level, the American Psychological Association defines mindfulness as, and I quote, awareness of one's internal states and surroundings by learning to observe their thoughts, emotions, and other present moment experiences without judging or reaction, end quote. I mean, just reading that, it's clear how much conscious effort just goes into that more free and present mindset. Mindfulness originates from Buddhism, where it was originally known as sati, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, which was Buddhist teachings for meditation that, simply put, meant to focus your mind with purpose and awareness, to be present. Pretty much every modern day mindfulness and meditation practice centers around the idea of being present, or just allowing yourself to be, which might be a term that we've all heard. The earliest origins of meditation are found to originate from Vedic, also known as early Hindu, before being adapted by Chinese Taoist and Indian Buddhist in about the 6th BCE, so very long time ago. The more spiritual practice of meditation that we are familiar with stems from Buddhism, where it was taught that meditation was one step in a multi-step way of life that leads to enlightenment or awakening. Mindfulness and meditation both have many physical benefits, such as stress reduction, better digestion, more peaceful sleep, and all of these things that help us work towards that state of alignment, or if you're more familiar with like yoga and spirituality, kind of like reaching your higher self, like the most balanced version of you, that idea, which is what this podcast aims to help you find amongst the chaos. There are also many other sources to help you better understand mindfulness and meditation, not just this podcast, but other podcasts, mindfulness coaching, yoga classes, YouTube videos, books. There are so many resources. We do live in a world of information, and even if you're just curious to know more and less keen to try it, it is an interesting topic to learn about. You may be wondering where you would even begin to practice something like this. Isn't it just sitting down and closing your eyes for a few minutes, because it's kind of what it looks like when people meditate? But meditation and mindfulness is genuinely so much more complex than that, because there's so much background to it, so much history, and so many like theories that go into it, both for the mental aspect and the physical aspect of it. And I don't think we really have the time to get into all of that, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily complicated, just complex. Because generally, yes, it is just being able to sit down, close your eyes, and quiet your mind, but you have to be intentional with it. I'm not someone who could sit in silence while meditating. I still can't. The silence makes me antsy and does not help me clear my head, which is what meditating is supposed to do. And there's not really one single way to meditate, so it's completely fine to have background noise if you can't handle the silence like I can't. But it has to be like specific background noise. So if you're trying to play loud music or trying to play your favorite show in the background like we all do to fill the space sometimes, that's not the type of noise I'm talking about. That's just going to be very distracting. I like to use nature sounds to meditate to. They're very calming and grounding. They're as easy as opening up your window if you have some nature sounds going on, but if that's too noisy, there are playlists on like Spotify, YouTube, probably other platforms that have audio playlists and whatnot, that play nature sounds like birds chirping, rainforest, thunderstorms, rainstorms, all of that, waves crashing. There's so much to choose from. But if nature sounds aren't your jam, or you just want to try out all options to see what works best for you, you can also search up white noise or green noise or whatever color you want to with noise at the end. And it brings up very neutral and non-overstimulating noises that can help to calm your brain enough to get into that meditative state. When you play this, let's say you decide on the birds in the forest, well, now you can sit down and close your eyes, and you can almost imagine you're in the forest listening to the birds chirp with your own ears. You can hear them move branch to branch, envision them fluttering around you, the leaves of the trees rustling, maybe turn on a fan so that it feels like a breeze is hitting your face, and just breathe. And it's really not much more than that. You can sit in that calm state, listening to the sounds of nature, and the only active thought in your mind being how peaceful the sound of the birds are and how the breeze or the fan feels on your face. And you can just sit there for a minute or 5 or 20. Most people don't start with 5 or 20 though. They start with 1. I know I did, because it's hard to get used to quieting your mind for so long. Even a minute feels like a long time when you first start, and the pros don't even recommend starting with 20 minutes. Unless you're feeling ambitious, then go for it. But it's so easy when you're sitting there for that long, especially as an untrained mind, to slip into like distracted thoughts like work and relationships and the fact that you still need to do the dishes or fold your laundry, because the level of patience and skill it takes to be able to sit there with an entirely blank mind for even 1 minute is something that takes time and patience and practice. That's just a brief rundown of how meditating actually works, though, and I highly, highly encourage you to check out a professional's version. There's a bunch on YouTube. If you look up guided meditations, that's a good place to start. Even if you don't love the guided versions, it can just show you how to structure your own meditations, but ultimately it comes down to what actually feels right for you and what allows you to have the clearest mind with an almost detached, like weightless feeling. It's really hard to describe until you experience it, but it's almost like right before you fall asleep. Like, it's so blissful, so carefree. This is going to sound silly, but if you are someone who is prone to falling asleep and you plan on meditating, especially if it's right before something important, you should probably set an alarm, even if you're only doing it for a minute or 5 minutes. But just on the off chance that you do fall asleep, it will wake you up. Because when you're meditating, you should be able to reach this level of tranquility and safety and stress-free mindset that you should be able to relax enough that you could fall asleep, but you might not want to. You might have things to get done. There's nothing about it that needs to feel structured or planned or precise, which is where that stress-free, relaxed state comes, because it should just feel natural and easy and relaxing. And it is really easy to just sit down, close your eyes, and breathe. Like, eventually you'll be able to reach that level of ease with meditating the more that you practice. The main goal is to be able to relax and lower your stress levels and give yourself a moment of calm, quiet, and peace in our very chaotic world that we live in, where we're always overstimulated and stressed and poorly rested. So give yourself even a minute of that calm. If you were to try practicing mindfulness and meditation, yoga, any of it, and you reach a point where you've sat with these feelings and fully understand your chaos, you should be able to see that most of those situations and feelings are things that are out of your control. I know many of us, myself included, love having control over most, if not all, aspects of our lives. It's natural, as chaos makes our survival instincts kick in, and the more control we have over a situation, the higher our survival chances are. But surviving doesn't always equal living, because sometimes that extra stress that we put on ourselves from trying to overly control a situation is unnecessary, because most of the situations we're trying to control nowadays aren't life or death, even negative and uncomfortable ones. Like, we don't have to control every aspect. Sometimes negative things just happen, though some of course are life or death. So if you are in a more serious situation like that, please find the proper help to get yourself out. But we'll be talking about more of like the kind of generic everyday stressors, or even if they're just more inconvenient, or sometimes it is the even more stressful ones, like I mentioned, like a family member being sick, or a stressful job, a coworker, stressful roommate, anything like that. The minute that we get comfortable with the idea that we can't control everything, and that sometimes things get chaotic, but it doesn't mean everything is doomed, when we give up that need for control, that's where the alignment begins, and that's where you start becoming aligned in chaos. This isn't to say that you shouldn't make necessary life changes to ease that chaos, such as removing toxic people from your life, or changing jobs, or setting important boundaries with disruptive or overbearing people. But sometimes life circumstances make it difficult to make those bigger changes that would be more beneficial to us. Maybe you can't quit your job because you need a year of experience for your resume, or you want to move but you just don't have the means to. I think it's easy for a lot of people to encourage these major life changes when they aren't the ones that have to deal with the consequences or figure out how to complete like that change. But I do think that there's ways to make chaotic circumstances more peaceful, even if you can't make those bigger changes, because I think that there's more minor changes that you can begin making to start moving away from negative energy. And a lot of it starts with your mind. It's beneficial to work towards a mindset that allows you to recognize the chaos that is out of your control and refrain from reacting, from wasting your energy on these things, and conserve your energy for things that you can control, things that are worth your time and add value to your life. In my own everyday life, that's something that I've been teaching myself to focus on, is things that add value to my life. Does this thing make me happy? Does this food add value to my body? Will this decision add more stress? And is that stress a good stress or a bad stress? I think it's easy for me to sit here and tell you how life-changing meditation is and how practicing mindfulness can make you less stressed. I know I had my doubts when I first started my own journey. I also know it might not work for everyone, and that's okay. But there is value in me sharing my own journey, my own thoughts on this, and providing you with as much information as I can, whether that value encourages you to try meditation or merely just entertain you for 20 minutes and then move on with your day. Either way, it's a win-win. I won't lie and say the journey to finding your inner peace will be easy, but I can tell you that it's worth it. I am a major overthinker and my own worst critic. Prior to starting my own journey with mindfulness and meditation, I had dealt with things like anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, grief and loss from losing family members and friends. So I was in desperate need of something to help with all of this because I was so overwhelmed and lost. And I discovered meditation when I was in college. I heard about it in passing. I don't quite remember where, but as many of you know, school is stressful, and at the time I had just dealt with the loss of a family member and some other negative life things, so having an outlet for these negative emotions was a must. I would usually turn to art, but sometimes my brain couldn't focus enough to really enjoy the process or even have the energy to do it. So then I would try to go work out, but I didn't really like working out, and that didn't fix my anxious thoughts. So that's when I discovered yoga, and I actually learned that I enjoyed it a lot better than full-on workouts. I found it a lot more calming, peaceful, still worked out my body, but I just didn't find vigorous workouts that enjoyable, and they kind of stressed me out more than relaxed me. Yoga ended up segueing me into meditation when I started researching it and discovered the connection between the two. And just as I had started getting a routine with yoga and school and my social life, COVID hit. I know, not a fun memory to bring up for everyone, but COVID was actually the catalyst for a lot of the projects I've done or am currently working on, and a lot of the stories that I've been writing and projects that I thought up were dreamed up prior to COVID, but I had put them on the back burner for school because school is just so demanding and busy. But COVID actually motivated me to dust off those old ideas, bring them back out, and actually work on them just out of pure boredom and needing creative outlets and stuff with being isolated from everyone and only doing online school and occasionally going to work. But back to the conversation of meditation and mindfulness. I completely lost my routine with yoga and meditation, and my mental health had spiraled thanks to COVID. All of the work that I'd put into getting my mental health back on track had disappeared, and I felt like I was right back at square one, which was really frustrating, incredibly discouraging, and I know a lot of people will probably relate to that because COVID was such a rough patch, and I didn't return to yoga and meditation for probably a good 6 months. I had a random moment of clarity where I felt inspired to actually pick back up meditation when I ended up buying a book on chakras, and I wasn't like spiritual at the time. I wasn't even very religious, so I don't know what made me buy it, but I guess the universe works in mysterious ways sometimes, because it ended up being a whole book on the importance of aligning your energy within yourself in order to balance yourself and in order to balance your external world as well. And for anyone who's unfamiliar, chakras are believed to be 7 major energy points in our bodies, each holding their own significance. And when aligned, we function at our highest selves. This is when our mind is the clearest and we are the most at peace. When unaligned, that's when we experience anxiety, depression, physical ailments, chaos in our lives because of poor decision making, or just having negative energy around us. The list goes on. This is all very spiritual, but if that's not your vibe, you don't have to get spiritual with it. Simply put, it's just the idea that the clearer our minds are, the clearer we see life, and we make better decisions and feel more content. We're not putting excess stress on ourselves over things that we can't control, or giving more energy than we have to so that we can better take care of ourselves, which in turn gives us the energy to take care of the world around us better. Now, if you noticed, the definition of chakras aligns with what did we just talk about earlier? I'm going to imagine that you all said mindfulness, and you would be correct. As I mentioned, this book got me back into yoga and meditation, which then gave me the energy to work through some tough memories and emotions and thoughts that I'd been avoiding, which then left me the energetic space to make necessary changes in my life that were tough, but for the best, and allowed me to start feeling more content and more joyful. And I felt and currently still feel less anxiety and less depression because I just have a lot better handle of those negative emotions now. I'm able to recognize them a lot quicker for what they are than I did in the past, and start working to kind of undo, the bad habits, the bad thought patterns that kind of come with those negative headspaces. I've also noticed that because this is probably 4 years ago at least, with every year that passes and the more that I practice, which I'm not perfect, sometimes I don't practice as regularly as I should, but I'm human, I end up dealing with less and less negative emotions as the years go on. And when I do feel anything negative, I don't sit with them as long because, like I said, I can recognize them a lot quicker. And compared to how I used to feel mostly negative emotions and low energy and gloomy headspace, I now am filled mostly with positive energy with just the occasional bad day, which I would say is pretty normal for everyone. Now, this took place over years. Like I said, it's been about 4 years, which is why I keep bringing up that it takes consistency and diligence and patience, because this all has to happen gradually over time. It's not like other self-help books. I won't name specific ones, but there are some that make it sound like it's magical and it all happens overnight, and you do one meditation practice and suddenly you're cured. It's really not like that. You'll have good days, you'll have bad days. You will start to see progress, and then if you kind of have some off months where you're just really not practicing at all, or even if you are practicing, it's just we're human and we go through a lot. Like, you'll start to get a little discouraged and think I'm not doing it right. But it's just how life goes. It's going to work, and then maybe you'll need to make adjustments, or you'll just have to be patient in the fact that you'll have some bad months and the rest of the months will be good. But with consistent practice and actively making conscious decisions to make necessary changes in your life, you will look back and recognize how different everything is. Because that's how I was. I, for a while, didn't think it was working as well as it was. But then looking back at who I was 4 years ago compared to now is just so much lighter and freer and a lot more patient and controlled. Sometimes the necessary changes that we have to make are going to be overwhelming. That's just forewarning. It's a new situation, so it puts us out of our comfort zone. Even adding in the practice of mindfulness or yoga, it's a change. It's going to be overwhelming at first. It's not part of our routine, but these changes can be beneficial, and putting ourselves outside of our comfort zone is beneficial. And this podcast aims to help teach you how to perfect those skills, how to better recognize your own emotions, and how to make it less overwhelming to approach healing those emotions and working through old memories and all of that. I'm really aiming to help teach you life lessons in a enjoyable and manageable way so that it's not so overwhelming and it feels like something you can accomplish, and that you'll learn to be okay with the frustration it might bring and overall just be better for it, be excited about the changes it can bring. So if this sounds like something you want to work towards, then I highly encourage you to stick with this podcast and let's build that mindset together. I hope even if you don't take up the practices of yoga, meditation, and mindfulness, because those were just some examples for this episode, that it's completely fine, but that you'll feel inspired to pick back up a dream that you also once put on the back burner, like I did with this podcast, with this project, with this idea of helping people that I have, because life is short, and why not just take a chance on yourself? Why not have enough self-love to just try a dream even once? Because how will you know? How will you know if it doesn't work out if you don't try? If you made it to the end of this episode, thank you, truly. Please feel free to leave a review. It'd be super helpful. Follow the podcast, share it with someone who you feel like might need a little pick-me-up or some inspiration in life. And you can find me on TikTok and Instagram at alignedinchaos for both of those. And I will see you back here for the next episode.